Hello there! Well, in this lesson we'll be using some impressionistic techniques to paint this scene of an old alleyway in oil paint. For a surface I'll be painting on a board or wood panel. These are fantastic. Because they're all wood, they are very strong and ideal for spin art and fluid art, and are also great to draw on because they're so smooth. If you would like to give this painting a go, then you can download this outline and colour guide in the PDF link above or at our website. A loose impressionist style of painting can be used on any subject. For most landscapes you don't really need to draw up the elements, you really just have to block in the major shapes, but for a busy urban scene it's not a bad idea to lay in the elements as there's a fair bit going on. Once the scene is roughly drawn in, I squeeze out some burnt sienna and crimson in acrylic, and using a soft goat hair brush, scrub it into the panel. This seals the wood, but it still enables the fine texture of it to be visible when a dry brush is used. For brushes, I'm using filberts of various size. This painting will be fairly loose, and filberts are quite versatile, and because you don't have to keep changing brushes, the painting happens a bit quicker. I start with the sky and use only titanium white and cerulean. White is laid down first and the blue is roughly mixed into it. Because the colours are undermixed and laid on quite thickly, the vibrance or light is quite apparent. Next I block in the dark patches of where I want the plants. In the drawing stage I just draw in a fluffy shape and make it up as I go when it comes to adding the paint. Although this tone looks like black on camera, it's mixed with sap green and crimson with a touch of cerulean blue. Then we can add some Naples yellow into the stems. It doesn't need to be detailed, just streaks of tone. I then dab green over the dark tone to suggest mass. This is why filberts are good for loose painting, as the curved tip doesn't leave a sharp edge. We can add a few hanging plants up here too. Remember to keep the light source in mind as well. In this case it's coming from the left. Then add a few bursts of colour to suggest flowers. Next we can block in the large building on the left. It's a large plane of colour with little detail. Large planes of colour can help a composition as there is nothing to detract from the broad composition. While I don't want to get too hung up on details, this big plant is close to the viewer. So I roughly block in the negative area around it and dab on a few leaves in highlight. Windows are an important element. The most crucial thing is to get the angles right. A simple stroke for the sill, then a stroke for the shadow is a quick, easy way to do it. When painting in this style, it's good to think, what is the most easy way to paint this element? This thought of creating an element with an economy of brush strokes is the best way to ensure a work gets the message across, and is less inclined to be rigid. The Impressionist technique of painting the negative space around an element and then roughing it in is a good way to simplify a complicated street gas lamp. If this painting was smaller, this lamp would be simplified to an even greater extent. I'll then move on to the next house and create a mix of orange-red, yellow medium and a touch of white, and quickly block the area in. All of the colours go on straight and I don't mix any medium into the paint. This way the coats of paint look more expressive as you can see the brush strokes, and you get areas where the tint can be seen through a broken surface. Although much of the detail is simplified or left out, certain elements like downpipes give a credibility to the scene. The house next door is the same colour, but it gets a little reflected light, and the colour shows a little lighter at the top. I darken the yellow with some blue and red and block in that shadow from the shutters. Try to introduce colours into the shadows whenever you can. Next, the big old building in the background. This old bell tower is the main focal point and the sky frames it really nicely. I quickly block it in. This wall captures quite a lot of light, so I want it to have the impression that it is reflecting this light. I cut in around the windows and add a touch of red ochre to the mix and paint it into the lower portion of the wall. Darkening the lower part of the wall creates interest as well as documenting the light. Next I paint the inside of the bell tower and lay a warm mix in to suggest shadow, then pure white into the right. This way we are painting the light. I then finish it off with some grey into the top of the tower. The windows can be blocked in and I can start on the opposing wall. Subtle blocks of colour are laid in first. The rest of the wall is handled basically the same way, but the mix is a pinky sort of violet. But because the light is emitting from the left, the top half of the wall is a lighter pink. These big terracotta pots are everywhere in the Mediterranean. I add a light tone first and then roughly mix it directly into the panel. Obviously the pot is a roundish shape, so it will have a highlight area and an area in shadow also. Incorporating figures into a painting adds a story to the work, and they can also become the main focal point. It's a fun challenge to see how simple you can make the figure or figures and still make them believable. It's really just a case of figuring out the shapes. I very simply block in the faces with a light pink and roughly mix darker skin tones into the pink, leaving any areas of highlight light. Clothing too is simply handled by laying a mid-tone in and then darkening and lightening for the areas that receive most light. I work quickly to get all of the information in and come back and refine any areas that need it. At this stage, once it's been roughed in, it's a good idea to move back and look at the initial block in from across the room. You can easily see what needs to be added or taken away. Although the stairs are in shadow, the top of the plane will still be lighter. These stone steps have lots of variations of tone through them, so I can go back in and add colour. Obviously the stones are differing earthy tones and are all mixed from the same tones of sap green, raw umber, red ochre and titanium white. More detail would obviously be apparent the closer they are to the viewer. I lay in some more terracotta into the small pot and then add a little shadow. Probably my favourite part of this painting is this little alley cat waiting for an offering from the kind old lady behind the door. Again, this little cat adds to the story, and he is painted in the same simplified manner by documenting how the light plays on each shape. Direct mixing on the panel is favoured over palette colour mixing when creating painterly works. Well, thanks for watching, stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.